We've got a problem with my wife's Jeep Wrangler. If you're not aware, it has a second battery, an auxiliary battery for the auto stop system, or part of the auto stop system. It is failing. I had a check engine light and an auto stop failure warning on the gauge cluster just a couple days ago. So it's time to do something about it. Now, the real remedy, I guess, is to go ahead and replace the auxiliary battery. There's two ways to do that. You can pull the whole fuse panel up here, the whole fuse box and everything, lift all that off, which means you have to disconnect all kinds of electrical stuff. I'm not doing that. The other way is to pull the fender liner, the inner fender liner down here, out, and then you can reach up underneath. There's a tray under there that you can take 3 screws off of, lower the whole tray, disconnect the auxiliary battery, take the terminals out of the auxiliary battery, put them in the new battery, and then put it all back together. It's cumbersome and it's a pain. So I went to the web and I found a solution, maybe, we're going to find out, to eliminate that whole system, to bypass it, if you will. Now, what I've been told on the web through my research is you can disconnect fuse number 42 from the fuse panel here. So you go ahead and remove that fuse. That, in essence, removes contact to a solenoid, and everything will then just run off of the main battery. When I say everything, I mean everything except the auto stop system. Now, one other thing you need to do for that is to disconnect the negative cable so that you take that auxiliary battery out of the system. You disconnect it, in essence. Now, from what I've seen, when you do that, you need to make sure you tape up the end of the terminal with some electrical tape, just so that when you fasten it in here, because you want to leave it, it doesn't contact anything and ground out the system. Now, the good thing about doing it this way, assuming it works, is if you ever need to take it in for service or you want to put it back to normal, all you have to do is put fuse 42 back in the slot inside, and I'll show you that, and then reconnect the negative battery terminal right here. I believe it's this one. We'll find out. If I disconnect the wrong one, well, the Jeep won't start, and then I know it's the other wire. So it's the one with the bigger nut here, I believe. Other than the lights that pop up, the error codes on the gauge cluster, I also noticed that when I went to start the Jeep, it would kind of kick on, kind of turn over, and then shut off immediately. Almost like it would do if you didn't have the brake pedal pushed down all the way, or you let off the brake pedal in mid-start, and then the system would just shut off, because you know you have to have the brake firmly depressed when you push the button to start the Jeep up, right? That started happening about 2 weeks ago, and I think that was the initial indication that something was wrong. So, okay, we're gonna start off with the number 42 fuse. So go ahead and pull off the cover, and then we have to find it. Let's see. Where is number 42? You need to look at the bottom of your fuse box. F42. F42. So that's what it's technically called, F42 ESS. So it's right here. I'm going to go ahead and pull that. We have a fuse puller right here. So I can just hopefully pull that out of there without it flying off underneath something. Once you figure out the method, it's pretty easy. There's a little tab right here. You pull that backwards and the fuse puller pops right out. Pretty easy. Now, if you've never used one of these, you just squeeze it together kind of like a pair of pliers, put it right over the fuse, and then just pull up. There, that pulls out the fuse. So we have that removed. I'm going to set that aside, and then we're going to go ahead and remove this screw right here, or nut, I guess, so I can remove that negative terminal. First, we have to remove the main connection here, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that bolt off. That'll allow us to have everything right in front of me, I suppose. Don't want to drop that screw or nut. All right, get that. That should release everything. Now we have to remove this nut here. All right, I've got what I believe to be the auxiliary battery ground off. I will say getting this nut off of that bracket because it wants to turn, you have to pull the whole thing off, and then I used a set of locking vice grips to clamp around there so I could get some leverage, and then just a 13 millimeter socket to go ahead and remove this nut, which allows you to remove that ground. A little bit of a pain, but not difficult to do. So now we're going to jump in. I'm going to start it. Hopefully everything's out of the way. Fuse covers are out of the way. We're going to start it. We're going to see if it starts and see if I get any error messages on the screen. That's the general idea. Now I do have power, so that's a good thing. It means I've got the ground hooked up correctly, I believe. So let's start it, see what happens. There's a bit of a lag, and we have a check engine light on. I don't know why. And the hood is open. You can see on the screen right there. So it shows you when the hood is open and there's a check engine light. I don't know why we have a check engine light. Maybe it'll go off, maybe it won't. I'm not exactly sure, and that might be because we have that ground disconnected. I'm not sure. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and just lay that ground back on there and see if that check engine light goes off. Okay, ground is back on. Let's start it up, see what happens. Check engine light remains. Now, that could be because that fuse is out. So I'm going to put the fuse back in too, and we're going to see if that goes away. Everything is back to normal. Let's see what happens. No check engine light. Interesting. So apparently, if I have that fuse out, it's going to display a check engine light on the screen. That is very interesting. Now, I'm going to try it one more time, and then I'm going to let it go for a little bit and see if that check engine light goes away. One last attempt. I have pulled the fuse and disconnected the ground. Let's start it up, see what happens. No check engine light. Isn't that interesting? So maybe it just had to do sort of a reset. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, we're going to go with it for a little bit. And I think that check engine light may have been on because I had the fault because of the auxiliary battery. And now that the system hopefully is reset, it won't come on again. But I'm going to take it for a ride, and then I'll give you my final thoughts once I'm done. Let's turn it off. Hopefully it doesn't pop up again. Now, one other thing I want to show you before we take off. I am going to sort of zip tie that line over here somewhere, or maybe fold it back and zip tie it here so that I keep it away from anything metal. Obviously, I don't want it to contact anything in ground because that would reestablish the connection, right? So let me do that. We'll go for a ride. All right, done with my test drive. Well, almost. Been out driving around for about 20 minutes or so. No issues, no lights, no error codes, well, no error icons on the gauge cluster, I guess. No ill effects whatsoever. Jeep seems fine. Auto stop system is gone. There is a message that says, I'll put up a screenshot of it here, but something like auto stop not working or something like that to protect battery. I assume that means that because the ESS is pulled, it can't draw anything, and I've disconnected the ground. It can't draw any power from the main battery, so they have cut it out, which is good, so that it doesn't pull anything from the main battery, which is the big problem anyway. But that's a message that you get when you flip through the different screens, I guess, on your gauge cluster. It's not anything that pops up on the dash or anything weird like that. So, it is a success. I am very happy. Saved me the hassle of doing it, that is replacing that stupid auxiliary battery. or taking it to the dealership and having them do it, which I wouldn't have done. So I think it is the solution. It's the auxiliary battery and auto stop eliminator. Awesome. Again, this is for a 2018 Jeep JL. It's the 3.6 naturally aspirated. I don't know if this works on any other version, so if you decide to try this, as with any mod, it's at your own risk. I assume no responsibility, but I'm happy with it. Anyway, leave a comment. Let me know if you've tried this yourself and if you've ever had any ill effects from it. I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.